Yo, what's up everyone? Doc Testosterone here. I'm with my good friend Sheila. She's gonna teach us so many things about our body today. She's a yoga teacher, she's a neurosomatic therapist. I met her here in St. Pete when I was working with Elliot Health at Strength Camp. She's a total G. Okay, and she's so awesome because she's taught me a lot of stuff about muscular imbalances. You guys know Sir Symmetry. Sir Symmetry works with us too. He's actually behind the camera right now looking really pretty. So let's get started, right? So a lot of people want to know who gives a shit about muscular imbalances, right? Like why should they care? Because these guys, obviously they want to look really good. They want to be stronger, they want to be more masculine, you know, have high testosterone. So why should they care about, for example, having the right and left side of the body balanced?
So you mentioned looking good. So there are lots of studies that talk about beauty being a result of symmetry in the face as well as the body. It shows a symbol of health to be symmetrical.
Okay.
And then, so we have the elderly population that as time goes on with asymmetries, you're going to have the tight muscles get more and more solidified, more fibrous tissue, binding with fascia that just gets really adhered to surrounding structures. So the older you get with asymmetries, the more the asymmetries grow. Now,
okay.
on the flip side,
Okay.
with young athletic people, we have actually some new research, well, not too new, from 2014 that's showing that symmetrical structure translates to symmetrical muscle balance, which translates to more force production. So that's highly important for athletes, bodybuilders, dancers, yoga instructors, and practitioners, basically all walks of life.
Got it. Now, one thing a lot of these guys do is use a lot of technology, right? So, you know, they're like this, they're always typing on their phones. You know, I've talked about this stuff before. I also want to get your perspective because it's very prevalent in society, right? So they're like this, they're, you know, hunched down, they're on their computer like this. So would a person who's watching right now lives in the modern society in 2016. So does this person need to worry more about what you know in terms of balancing your body than, let's say, his grandfather?
For sure. His grandfather was probably gardening, doing a lot more physical labor than we're doing now. Certainly not spending time in front of technology. So nowadays, everything is so forward. We're bent over in front of our tablets and our phones, and it's completely imbalancing the posterior and anterior chains. So we're getting more and more tight in the front of the body. It can start to create bigger physiological problems like thyroid imbalance, like vertigo, some neurological issues. So it's not just the physical issues that you think about with muscles and tendons. It starts to get a little deeper into the neurological and physiological issues as well.
Wow, you brought up the anterior posterior chain. That's really good because one thing, I mean, these guys already know, one thing that I've been working on a lot is my posterior chain. Now, when I first came to Strength Camp, what I was doing, I would do a squat, and as I would go up, I would tilt a little bit to the left. And Sir Symmetry was the first person to actually notice. I said, what the fuck is this? You're moving to the left, right? So, because I was doing that, I realized that there's something going on in my body. So that's when I went to Randy, we did the x-ray, and they found out that my right leg is 6 millimeters shorter than my left leg. Right now, so who gives a shit? Well, I got my x-ray done, and they found out that my SI joint on the left side of my spine is pushing down, right? And what's gonna happen later on in life, and you got these fuckers who are walking like this and shit, right? Or you know, they're walking on one side. So it's just, you know, you talked about being attractive and looking good. So that's part of it, but there's also the pain part of it. So as I started doing heavy lifting, and you know, when you first get into something like this and you go heavy, you're gonna put a lot of stress on your body. So the left side of my back had a lot of pain, right? So I got worked on a lot. And so now, after all this work, what they figured out is that my posterior chain is weak and my anterior chain is strong, right? Upper body strong, anterior strong, posterior weak. So hamstrings, glutes, right? And because we're sitting all day, we have this like very sedentary lifestyle, that posterior chain is gonna become really weak, right? So one thing we wanna kind of start off with is, what is your perspective on leg lifts short leg, this kind of theory, because I got like 99% of the people who are listening to us right now don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So tell us what your perspective is on leg lifts, short leg, and why someone should give a damn.
So leg length inequality affects about 60% of the population. So the greater the leg length difference, the less of the population it will affect, but in effect, we have a pretty large number that are dealing with this imbalance. Now think about how much back pain there is in the United States. There's 80% of the people have back pain and end up missing a lot of work. It costs the country a lot of money with healthcare and missing work. So this is a problem. A lot of the back pain we found at the clinic is stemming from leg length inequality. Not only back pain, but also neck pain. What goes on in the lumbar spine, you're going to see the same thing going on in the cervical spine. Eventually, you'll have some kind of mirror effect, as above, so below. But certainly the anterior and posterior balance not only comes from leg length inequality, which could exacerbate it, but also the technology and the way we are today, always moving forward. So staying active and finding out about your balance is super important. Now, you have to find a therapist that works with this. So here's the catch. At some point, many years ago, they decided to teach that it's not very important to address the leg length inequality. So that became the curriculum for...
Why is that? Why did they do that? Because they're stupid.
They didn't see the importance of it because they didn't correlate the back pain with leg length inequality.
Right.
They correlated with the exact area of pain. So, there's a disc herniation. Okay, so there's a problem with those two vertebrae and that disc. So what do? They slice off part of your disc, they disectomy. So they don't look at the bigger picture. Well, why is there a tilt between these two vertebrae that are causing the disc herniation? So what we do is we zoom out and we look at the whole picture. Well, it could be from a leg length inequality, which affects the hips, which affects the spine. Therefore, you have a pelvic tilt and vertebrae at an angle to one another, shooting the disc off to the open side. So instead of surgically removing part of the disc, which we never really want to remove any part of our body, last resort possible, we want to work on balancing out. So first, we'll introduce a lift to create the structural balance. Then we have to take it a step further and talk about finding the muscular balance once we've created the structural balance. Then you can start to create balance within this little window of area that might have the problem. And finally, the disc will rehydrate, go back into place, and you won't have that back pain. It's a process. It's not a quick fix. It's also not a Band-Aid. So it is a little bit of a process that takes patience. But in the long run, having balance in your body is going to give you joints that will last 80, 90, 100 years, hopefully.
Right, and that's a really good point. And you talked a little bit about the practical aspects of things like pain is very practical. So I want to show these guys what exactly a leg lift is. So if you look, help here if they can see it or not. So here, if you look, here are my two shoes, right? So this is one of my shoes. This is my left side, and this is my right side. And if you notice, on that side, the 6 millimeters are there because I have a 6 millimeter shorter leg on the right side. So they've actually repaired this. They took the sole off, put the 6 millimeters on, and then put the sole back on. Okay, so that's what it is. So this is my right leg, this is my right shoe, and this 6 millimeters has been added on because I have a 6 millimeter inequality. So what you just saw was my shoe, the 6 millimeter part that has been attached to the shoe. Let me talk about some of the benefits that I've gained with this. So first and foremost, my pain is gone. So the left side back pain that was probably caused by the SI joint pushing down on my spine, gone. When I do my squat, straight, just very, very symmetrical, and I'm going straight. I'm not putting strain on one side or the other. So that's the second thing. The third thing is, since I've, not just the leg length difference, but not just the fixing of the legs, but also getting work done by a nurse therapist 2 times a week, actually, when I was here, the blood flow in my body, right? My ability to breathe, breathe into my balls, or just like breathe very nicely and feel very light and kind of like athletic, that has happened because when you get this this improvement in your body, you're gonna, like, I felt the difference right away. The pain went, like in 3 days the pain was less, and in 7 days it was gone. Now, I've also noticed that when I don't have this on, so I remember we went to a meditation camp for 3 days, we were only barefoot, right? And after those 3 days, I had massive pain. And that pain lasted like 10 days, right? So I know that my body is changing, right? I have factual evidence my body's changing because of that like the inequality. So that's basically what I've experienced for myself.